And so there's a mindset that says a product manager is the CEO of the product. And I'm sorry, but you guys are not the CEO of the product. Don't fall into that mindset. Falling into that mindset means things that you want to get done will not get done. You know, people will stop trusting you. It's just, don't go down that road. Basically, how you should work is you're going to need to really, really influence people to get things done. And I'm here to talk about influence. That's the only thing we're going to talk about today. It's a topic that I'm okay at, but I'm a student of. I love learning about how to influence people, what works in the long term, what works in the short term, but backfires in the long term. So I'm here to share just things that I've learned over this time. The way we'll conduct it, I have 3 sections. So I'll go through a section, stop for questions, again go through the next section, stop, and then more Q&A at the end. Sounds good?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So when I think of learning any new skill, there's like 3 levels of learning that skill. One is tools. So those are like small tactics that you might use, small techniques that you might use, and that's what I call a tool set. One level above is skill set. So now that you've learned those tools, how do you apply them into like meta skills that you inculcate on a day-to-day basis? And then finally, there's mindset. The mindset is when you have internalized a skill so much that you start to view things differently, that's when you've had a change in mindset. So I'm going to talk about these 3 things today: tool set, skill set, and mindset. Try to come up with a better thing rather than TSM. Ran out of time, so it's a TSM of results. Cool. So now let's do some fun exercises while we do this. So how many people here have gotten in the mail like these things, with your name and address and these stickers? Tons?
I get them like almost every month.
Anyone not familiar with what these are? No clue? Okay. So very often you'll get a request for donations from a charity, and what they will do is they will send you these stickers, because they're useful, right? You don't want to write your name every time you're sending a mail out, so you stick things. So useful. So why do they send them?
Trying to guilt you into giving them information?
Guilt, exactly.
Trying to be useful.
Try to be useful, maybe.
To influence you.
Influence you, but yeah.
To influence others that you're sending letters to.
Mm-hmm. Could be.
Yeah,
If
so you
this
have their
thing
logo.
had something like the logo, that would be. Yeah. You had something?
You're giving you a reason to give them money by providing this small product. You shouldn't be. I guess the right word is guilty
Yeah,
into providing this money.
It is sort of guilt. It's a principle of reciprocity, right? So a lot of these is based on a book called Influence by Robert Cialdini. I'm going to cover a small portion of that. That will show you amazing. So reciprocity is just something everybody is taught. If somebody did something for you, you have to do something back. That is why you get these in the mail. They did something nice for you, and so you're obligated to give back to them. Now, this might seem like a tactic that's like, not so cool. But actually, reciprocity is one of the best things to ever happen to humankind. I could do something for someone, knowing that like 10 years down, if I need a favor returned, they will probably return that favor. So the idea of paying it forward makes sense. And so, why does it matter to you? Well, very simple. If there's somebody who you want to influence, help them any way you can. Small, big, just help them. So that's the first tool, which is use reciprocity. And I've used this often. One thing I do try to do is not be like super targeted that, oh, I need something from you, so I'm going to start helping. Right? It's more an attitude of just, hey, I'm going to help people across my workplace, and then when I need something, they'll be there for me. Cool. So let's move on to the next group. So, you see a slogan up here. Just want to tell you what this tool is, so I'll go into the story. What what scientists did, they did some sort of an experiment. They're like, hey, can you put this like small slogan like this supporting a particular movement? And about 20% of people said, sure, it's good. So they put it there. Now, 4 weeks later, they went to 50 houses. 25 of them who had put the slogan, and 25 brand new. And they gave this giant banner which covers your entire yard. And they asked people, could you please put it? The new houses that they went to, like nobody said yes. The houses that they went to, which had put these signs, 50% of them said, sure. Strange, right? Why would that happen?
You're already a supporter of whatever this is.
Could be that, yeah.
Maybe you didn't know there was a bigger sign, now you have one.
You definitely didn't know there was a bigger sign. Anybody else? Any other guesses?
How is their relationship built?
Yeah. That's
It's like motivation, maybe you feel motivated.
yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
It's called a foot in the door. Okay.
Yeah.
Where you ask for something, person, accepts and pleases you, and then he's part of the movement, and then there's a cognitive dissonance of, well, I did donate, or I did agree to do that, and now you're asking me something that's in line with what I did before. How can I say no?
Yeah. So it's the idea of commitment and consistency. It's, you have done something in the past, and now you want to do more in that same regard, right? Like if you stood up for something, you want to just continue with that path. You're anchored in that, and so this is for me one of the most powerful ones. Here's how I think of it. Let's say I'm proposing a brand new product idea within my group. It needs 10 people to work for 6 months, and then we might deliver something awesome. I would never actually propose an idea like that. In most cases, I would propose something like, okay, why don't we start with this experiment? Let's do something. Bring 2 or 3 people on board, get some results, and now ask for something big. So that's one way when you're trying to make any sort of massive changes or get things done. Just worry about getting people to do something small, and then bring in the bigger things later. So this was commitment and consistency. Okay, next puzzle. Somebody's getting tired. It's like, oh shit, one more puzzle. What the hell? 6:30 or 7 o'clock. So how many people have seen this? Like, hey, will not wash your sheets, blah, blah, blah. Can somebody give me ideas on how people could increase this? Like how could a hotel chain increase more people enrolling into this program?
What I've heard is if you actually tell them how many people are doing it, like 90% of all of our guests do this. Would you also like to be one of them? I read somewhere that actually says if you state the positive side of it, rather than you're making a difference on the planet. That was, I don't know, an article I read saying that might help more than this.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You offer this option at check-in. I feel like this is too subtle.
Yeah, to make it more obvious. Yeah. Go ahead.
Less words. One side just says like change sheets, one side just says do not change sheets.
Yeah, make it simpler for them to use it. Yeah. You had something?
I was just saying incentivize them, give them free lunch or something.
Free lunch. Got it. Cool. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways. So there's 2 ways. One which does not relate to the principle I'm going to talk about, which is just make it the default. Say, hey, we will change your sheets every 3 days. If you want them changed more often, put this card there. Most people won't do it. So that's one way. But the other one, which you mentioned, ties to the concept of social proof, which is tell people, hey, 80% of guests do that. In that scenario, and hopefully that's not a lie, you know, that's the truth. People are looking for cues to others for behavior, right? You know, like I see this table empty, sort of. I'm sure if there was one person sitting there, there will be two people. It's like people look to each other for cues, and that's something I use very often when I'm like, you know, talking about maybe changes in a team or whatnot. It's like, oh, you know, person X agreed with me, and hopefully it's person X who people respect and value. Or, you know, I found 2 out of 3 customers who said that. So just the idea of your behavior needs to be consistent with other people's behavior is very, very powerful and very prevalent throughout the entire world. Cool. So we're halfway through. 3 done. 3 to go. Get ready for the next one. So yeah, this one's simple. So you go into doctor's office and the picture's kind of sucky here. But you see all these like, oh, I graduated from Harvard and then I went to University of Chicago and I did this. All these certificates on the wall. Why do they put it?
Establish credibility.
Yeah, right, exactly. Anybody else?
Build
Yeah.
trust.
Trust? Like as in, you know, they're
Maybe
not
because
like,
of the credibility, they know, okay, we can trust this person because he has knowledge or experience.
yeah. Anyone else?
Just said, it's not just what I say, I come from a place that they, the experts, are saying, I know what I'm talking about. So I have a back, someone's back to me.
Right.
In this arrangement, almost it's supposed to overwhelm.
Yeah.
It's just a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
of them, and they're
I'm
in no
busy.
like discernible order or
Yeah.
they don't think they're supposed to be red. They're supposed to be kind of like marble.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, that might be by design. So the idea here is authority figures. People tend to obey authority figures often way too much. Are you looking at me funny? You're like, I never did that. And you know, it's possible. But this is like this includes a lot of things. So this is why all the certificates are on up front. People actually have shown that when people saw these as they walked into the doctor's office and when they saw nothing, there was actually an increase in how much the adherence to medicines, to like how much they took the medicine that the doctor prescribed. Subtle things, you know, as you're walking in, you're seeing this, but it has a bad effect on you. Weird, but true. It's also one of the reasons why doctors might wear the white coat. It's another like authority figure. And there have been a lot of other lab studies where just how the person was dressed or what they were wearing had like remarkable effect on what people did and how they perceived them. In fact, I remember this one study where professor, the only difference was on the first day, they were t-shirt and jeans, and then a different class, you know, he was teaching the same class, first day wore a suit and a tie, and the suit and a tie resulted in better grades for the students and better feedback. But these things matter. So this I'm going to crowdsource. How would you use this principle in like a PM role and day-to-day?
So you sort of have to influence with that authority. So the more authoritarism that you have, the easier it will be to influence people.
Yeah.
So dressing up is that.
Yeah. Actually, dressing up is one, like, you know, when you're doing a presentation, you know, you should wear something nice. I don't know if I'm following that, but, you know, it does help. Yeah, sorry, go on.
It almost goes back to first appearances matter. It almost frames the rest of the experience going forward.
Right. Yep. Go on.
If you're trying to get something done, either name dropping somebody above you that person will listen to, or even copying them in an email, you can do it.
Yeah, that's really interesting, right? Copying people's bosses on email.
Or they could drop by the meeting, like, I agree with you, I love that idea.
Yeah, in the back.
When you're talking about things that are kind of involved in the direction of the product, speak with conviction rather than saying like, it might be good if we try this, it might be good if we try that.
Yeah.
Just say something that sounds like it has, you know, an authoritative background to it.
Yeah. No, all these things matter. So, like one of the things I do, embarrassed to admit it, but like in interviews I do some name dropping. Oh, I studied design in this Don Norman, and you guys probably don't know who Don Norman is.
Oh, of course we know.
Sorry, what?
Of course we know who he is.
You know? Okay.
He's famous.
Yeah,
Hello.
he is famous, of course. I did one course.
Okay,
It
that's
went very
awesome.
well. Yeah. So like these things matter. Now, with all of these, like just one word of caution, you know, you could use them for good, use them for evil, so apply your judgment in all of these. Cool. We are out of
Done.
we're done. What happened? Oh, okay. Yeah, so next one is actually did we skip a slide? We'll see. So the next one is you know, as the word might say, it's principle of liking. So get people to like you, and there's two ways that you can get people to like them. One, they perceive that you like them. That is like number one. You're warm, you're friendly, you're not standoffish. That's like number one. But the second one is you are like them. So this, you know, what are commonalities that you have? Right, exactly. Like, what are things that you guys have in common, or beliefs you have in common, bonding over them? Like, it matters like a year later. It matters. It just keeps giving dividends. Yeah, this was just the second part. Okay, last but not least. So, how many people here have heard the story of Coke and New Coke? Coke. Was New Coke successful? Why
Yes.
not? Well, actually, let me ask you another question. Did it taste better?
According to preliminary results.
Yeah. It
Oh,
was like,
really? They said it tasted better?
according to blind taste test, it was so much better. So why did it fail?
So obviously the font is a problem here. A difference between these two is the classic font they've had for like 150 years, and whatever font that is.
Maybe.
It's one
Go on.
The users didn't like it.
The users didn't like it. Why didn't they like it?
Oftentimes you don't know if the user likes it or not. If the user doesn't like it, you need to shelf it. That's it.
Which is what they had to do. It was, I'll come to you guys. It was known as one of the 10 worst ideas of the century and the marketing debacle of the decade. So it was bad. Go on.
Is this user perception change? Because they know Coke tastes good and it's just delicious. But this new Coke is kind of like a new adventure for them. And they might feel like, why do you have to change something that is already good to something that potentially bad, even though it might be the exact same product?
You're getting there. Well, I'm going to ask you for the answer and then.
It's, I guess it's along the same lines, familiarity involved in the taste and how the product looks.
Yeah.
So they're already familiar and they like it so much and
Yeah.
they like it so much.
Go on.
Kind of the fundamental paradox of New Coke is that ultimately it was a big win for Coca-Cola because when they switched back to Coca-Cola Classic,
Yep.
they had their highest sales they've ever had.
That's super interesting, right? Yeah, that happened too.
tricky.
Yeah. So, okay, so I'll be like, as you guys mentioned, like, people are familiar with Coke. And then saw that Coca-Cola company introduced a new thing called New Coke while you had Coke. They said, everyone, we are switching to New Coke. No options. This is it. This is what's happening. So this relates to the principle of scarcity. When something is scarce, we want it. Oh, tickets about to sell out. Everybody rushes and buys it. Right? You know, limited time offer. People tend to buy it. People react. People want things that are scarce, partly because they have social proof, and it's just a sense of urgency. So how does that come in here? Well, you took away this one thing that people liked, and now it's scarce, and everybody wants it. In fact, there was a Coke Classic Association of America formed, where everybody called the Coke company. The president of that association had undergone 3 blind taste tests before this thing was introduced, just coincidentally. And guess which Coke he preferred in blind taste tests?
Yes,
New Coke, exactly. And so it's like scarcity. And I can relate to this. So I used to work at a consulting firm before. And we had this offsite, fancy offsite. And we did some taste tests for wine. And the $10 wine, I loved it. It was just amazing. And the $100 wine kind of sucked. I didn't like it. So I'm the cheap dates. But after that was revealed, guess which wine I had? I mean, the $100 wine. I'm never going to spend $100 on wine myself. So why not go for the thing that's scarce and just drink that? So these were the 6 principles of influence, or the 6 tools you can use. Any questions before we go on to skills? Go ahead.
Could you give an example of when you used the scarcity principle as a product manager?
That's a great question. When have we used scarcity? Yeah. So it's been largely in team formation. So I'm like getting this new team together. And I have 2 people and I need 2 more. And I've always pitched it as, there's 2 spots left. So, if you want to join, now's your chance. So it sort of combined 2 things. One, that 2 people already have committed. So, and then also there's 2 spots left. Now I could have maybe gotten 5 people for the team and it would have been fine. But, I want to make sure that the scarcity thing is there. Also setting deadlines. That's very important. Like starting date, launch dates, we're launching here at this point. We've scheduled everything around it. That just gets people focused towards the deadline. Cool. So now let's move on to, so this is the tool set. Again, reciprocity, commitment, consistency, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. Please.
Can I add one?
Yes.
There's an effect called door in the face.
Door in the face.
Where you start by asking for a crazy ask. And then when people refuse, say fine, then just do, and you ask for something.
Yeah.
Half of this, right?
Yeah.
And,
Great. Yeah.
And I use that a lot in product management, especially where, at a startup, people want to do their sprint and don't touch me, but things come in the middle of the way, you disrupt the sprint.
Yeah.
So you can start with listen, this is functionality, this is what I want to do, you click here, it goes there, and then what, you crazy, we can't do that. You're like, all right, I simplified it for you, this is the only thing I need. Oh, that we can do. And if I started with a small one, you're like, I'm sorry, the sprint is closed, you don't have it.
Why do you think it works?
Why do
Or does it relate to any of these?
So there's always guilt.
Yeah.
Of someone is asking for something, this is really important to him, and I'm saying no. People hate to say no. So when you give them another option,
yeah,
and they're like, you know what, we are compromising that.
Yeah.
You asked for this, too much, I wanted 0, something in the middle, that's fine.
So in my mind, it relates to reciprocity. You've given them something. You've given them, you step back and you're like, okay, let's just talk about something smaller. That's a gift. And they are, and in negotiation, I'm teaching a class next week on negotiation. This is one of the biggest things, is you begin by anchoring. Anchoring is telling people something that's outrageous, they're anchored high. Then when you make concessions, which is a gift, or the reciprocity applies, and they're obligated to give something in there. But great. That's great tactic to use. Go on.
I have another example that's very similar to this. I work with a UX designer, and sometimes we need a few things to be designed. So I used to ask him, and he used to give it one by one. And I'm like, no, not this. Can you give me one more? One more. I used to go to 10 iterations. And then he learned. So in the first time, next time, he gave me 3. 2 were really bad, and 1 was good.
Oh.
And then I had to make a choice there, and I had less power to ask him for more.
Yeah.
And so then he sort of boxed me in, and I had to choose the best one of the 3.
Totally.
And then so now I use that with my dev team.
Yeah. Great learning experience.
Sometimes that backfires though.
Yeah.
Because my client, I was like, here's the thing I would not suggest you do, like, they're not product people, they're just marketing people, so they just have all these millions of ideas, and you're like, but you know this is a bad user experience. And you're like, here's this, they're like, could you mock up, blah, 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 I'm like, they're going to pick this one, because I know this is a bad user experience, you know,
Right.
it's what they asked for, so you have to give them that.
Yeah.
And then, so then I create kind of two others, so that hopefully they don't pick the one that's really they asked for, but it's really,
Really bad.
really not gonna deliver a good user experience.
Yeah.
Well, you asked for that, then they see this one, then they often are like, okay, but sometimes it backfires, and they're like, no, but I like that one, and you're like, oh, man,
Yeah.
fine, we'll launch that, but maybe we can A/B test it, or maybe you'll see that doesn't perform well, and
Right.
change it.
Yeah, no, there's actually a related effect, very, very prominent, called the spotlight effect, where like, if you take something and you like focus on one or two effects of that, there's a good chance nobody will think about the other five things there. And actually, Daniel Kahneman, I think that's how you say his name, he won the Nobel Prize in psychology. He was saying like the number one thing I wish that people would change their behavior is that they would look beyond what's right in front of them. Like we perceive what's in front of them as the most important thing. So like for you guys, influence is the most important thing and nothing else is more important. I'm kidding, but you know, like the idea is that tend to focus on what's in front of you and not think about the product. Cool, I'm gonna get us moving to the next set, which is now, okay, we take these tools and then how we move them into a high level of skills. So what are skills really? These are the ones I'm gonna talk about. You influence people by aligning goals, using all these different tools, building relationships, storytelling, which is again a combination of all of these, and building a reputation. How are we doing in time? Doing great. Doing great for your time. Cool. So goal alignment. So this is most applicable when you're not a CEO. When you people don't report to you. You can't change their incentives. And the problem is that, you know, people might be rowing in different directions. So I'll give you an example of that miserable failure on my end, where I was working on a new product. So I went to the marketing team and like, you know, we got to start a campaign on X, and you know that will drive these very targeted list of customers, and this is what will happen, and let's do it. They're like, okay, let's do it. And 2 weeks later, nothing's done. And 3 weeks later, nothing's done. Well, why? Why is that? Can anybody guess why nothing was being done, even though they were saying yes?
Or would they have different goals coming from their operating management?
Yeah.
So their priorities are on their plate, and your thing wasn't as important as the other things on their plate.
Yeah. I mean, they are compensated, or not necessarily compensated, but measured on how many leads they generate. And my approach was all about, we just have a few customers we go after, but we'll convert them at a higher rate. So, you know, just didn't align with their goals. How do we solve that? How do we solve such a problem where big goals don't align?
You get to figure
Oh, sorry.
I mean, you could go to marketing and say, if you have leads, what are things that are coming up the most, and trying to align your product or what you're trying to sell through marketing with what they're generating or not generating as a result of that. And I use that a lot with the marketing team because I think my product's the best thing in the world. But I can go to them and say, I'm releasing this in 2 weeks, and I'll go visit them in 2 weeks again and be like, so did you like put this out yet? And they're like, no. And I'm like, all right, well, you told me that you lost this lead because of this, so why? You know, that's, you could tie it in with, you know, what their goals are.
Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, you gotta get the goals changed, but that has to happen through probably somebody higher up in the management chain. And that's typically an escalation. You know, like, oh, you raised this issue up. Now, that just sounds bad, right? You're like going behind their back to their boss, maybe involving your boss and trying to get this thing done. But we, I mean, especially at Google, we are encouraged to do escalation, but we do inclusive escalation, which is both of us would say, look, hey, somebody, you know, we just have different priorities. They're not aligned. Somebody higher up needs to make a decision on what's important. And we'll both go talk about the pros and cons, present our case. We'll let one person decide, and then the term is disagree and commit, which is like, okay, now you have aligned our goals and we'll move forward. And it's an amazing experience. Like if you've always thought of escalation in terms of you're talking about someone behind their back, but then you learn to include them in the process and they get their say, things just work super well. So goal alignment is like the first skill that you build towards influence. Cool. Next is relationships. So this is, we talked about liking, we talked about doing things for people. They're all towards building relationships. I talked about I am like you and I like you. That's one way to build relationships, and then also really understanding what matters to them. That's another very important part of building relationships. So the goal, one caveat here is that when we think about relationships and social relationships, they might be different than work relationships, right? You're building more credibility. You're trying to build friendship as well, but really credibility. That's the next step. Okay, third is storytelling. Most important thing you're going to hear today. So, a lot of people here are PMs, right? Do you have your elevator story ready? Like if somebody said, hey, how are things going with your product? And they're kind of familiar, but not really. What would you tell them?
Depends on the role.
Actually, that's a great observation. Depends on their role. But sorry, you were going to say something?
I mean, I work on a product that helps people in schools, and teachers, students, and parents, and usually, I'm not going to say it verbatim, but it's like who you're helping and why their jobs are hard without it.
Totally.
What current teachers we have that are helping, what's coming down the road that could be relevant to them, and then what's the last one? Oh, the main thing that I usually go with is it's going to save you time, and then they're like, okay, you have my attention.
Yeah, exactly. So I think like with a good elevator story, which you should have read all the time, you're trying to establish three things. One, this thing matters to users. There is some change we are making to the world, and that's always something you can get. Then the second part is what you've done for me recently. And the me part is important. So if I'm talking to like the CMO, I would talk much more about the product's ability to bring in customers who might use other products. Right? That's what matters to them. And then the last part is what are you going to do next? Right? That's in my mind always the product that I'm story. There's a second part to this is which we've tried to follow pretty religiously at Google, but began at Amazon. When you're trying to influence engineers to get them revved about a product idea, right? One part is like, hey, this is like an amazing technical challenge. Amazing thing for us to solve, it's going to be difficult, but they're going to learn so much, cool. But engineers really, in most cases, care about the impact on people. So we always follow this. How many people have heard of working backwards and the press release? Some people have, yeah. Cool. So it sort of works super well. So the idea is that I'm right now at day 0, and I write a mock press release. Let's say a year from now when we launch this product, what will we say in the product release? It should cover what's the impact on the customers, what's exciting about it, and what they should go do next. And if you just Google this, like Amazon working backwards, you get this Quora post that just explains it in full detail. We don't start any new product without it. It's a discipline. And the idea is there's like twofold. One is if you can get your narrative right, there is no way you're going to build a good product. So that's number one. But the second one is if you do get it right, you'll get double commitment from your team. People would love to join that product that has a clear value proposition and it has a clear story behind it. So this is another influence strategy, but also just like a meta skill for PMs. Cool. And then last, okay, so reputation. So PMs are actually dispensable in some sense, right? On a day-to-day basis. Like if your design is not there, you won't have mocks, you don't know what to build. If your engineers are not there, then nothing's getting built, right? So things should stop working. I'm sure if I even like didn't show up for a couple of weeks, things will probably happen. Like, it's not that things will stop happening. People will write code, things will get shipped. So my impact is always longer term, right? Like the bet is always that if I'm not there, then like over 6 months, what we build will not be the right thing for customers. And for that to happen, I either need to be there and be there making every single decision that's going on, like hey, like where should we put that button or whatnot, or I can just teach people how to make decisions, right? I can just be like, hey, what is the kind of mental model I would follow to make that decision, and most cases they'll get it wrong. And it all comes from having a strong person. So this is like you're thinking long term and you're thinking, hey, what's really what people should think of you when you're not there in the room. So that's what personal brand is all about. So I'll tell you how I think about this in the context of. I'm going to get a sip of water before I. Okay. Okay, so for thinking about a personal brand, you have to really think about what do you want, like 3 words that people should think about when they think of you, right? So would anybody want to volunteer and tell me 3 words that they want people to think about you? Any volunteers? I know this is not getting personal. Go ahead.
Knowledgeable.
Knowledgeable.
Oh, 1, 3. Okay.
Or give me one more.
Hands-on.
Hands-on.
Assertive.
Assertive. God.
To be relatable.
Relatable. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, and mine are, like, I always try to be forward-thinking, rational, and passionate. Like, those are 3 things I want people to take. So, what I need to really worry about is, okay, that's what I want. What are the activities that I do that promote these things? And what are things that detract from it? So your personal brand is just like brand, it's the perception in the mind of people who work with you. It's not what words you throw out, it's not a slogan you have, right? So for example, I thought about forward thinking as like something I want to do. And I always like try to think of what are activities that I can do that keep this brand building forward. So like, laying out a vision and communicating it endlessly, like talking about the vision all the time. What is the problem we're solving? Why do we need this? Thinking about long-term how we get there and explaining that to people. Getting to the root cause of problems and solving them for long-term rather than doing short-term fixes. And those are sort of activities you have to think about when you think about building your brand for the long term. And then you also have to think about what might you do, like what are your tendencies that take away from this. So I do have a tendency of jumping to, like getting things done fast, right? Like I want fast action, like, hey, just get this done. But I might jump to action and conclusions too soon. So I gotta watch out for that. And focusing too much on the short term, so like what we need to do next day or next week versus what we need to do next year. So this is extremely personal, but everybody should be thinking about what is the personal brand you want, what are words you would use to describe, and then what you currently do or want to do that sticks towards it or keeps it away. So I'll say one last thing about personal brand and then open for questions around skill set, which is which sort of relates to what I was talking about, that hey, even without you thinking to happen, coders will code, designers will design, market sales will sell, which is like, think about what's your spike, like what is the one thing you want to be known as. And as a PM, you have several things to choose from, right? So some PMs just know the customers really well. They've been in that domain forever, they understand them really well, they're market experts. Others know competitors really well. Other PMs just know their product so well, and it's a super strong, super complex product, so that becomes a strength. Others are like good strategists. So you really have to think about what's your spike, because most people don't remember every interaction they've had with you. They remember like the one strong interaction or the one strong thing you achieved, and the one time you fucked up. Like, it's like the two spikes. So you gotta think about really what that spike that you go after and try to fuck up. I actually have this green thing here because in one of the roles I had previously, there were like things weren't going awesome, but I just decided, look, I'm going to become a product expert here. I'm going to know this product and doing extremely well. And I had a bet with one of the engineers that, hey, I know this functionality better than you. If you win, then I'll buy you a box of green tea. We both drink green tea, and otherwise, you buy me one. And I ended up winning that, and I was like, okay, this is my spike building up. I actually never drank that green tea, but that box was very, very firmly displayed on that. Cool. Any questions around skill sets or anything we've covered so far? Okay, now we're getting to the close. I know it's getting late, so let's power through the right thing. So mindset. This is the last one, and it's going to show. So there's three things I want you to think about when you think about building your influence mindset. So first of all, think long term. So like what can bring you to next week or next month will not last forever. You have to think about influence in terms of am I doing something in the short term that's going to set me up for success over the long term, like build the right reputation, build the right relationships, or is this a quick win that I'll get? So like that's just one thing everyone should keep in mind. And a lot of this comes down to not using coercion, like not being like, hey, I'll speak to the CEO and get this done. That will get things done one time, and then two times, but then it's stops being useful. So use all these other principles for this. Second, so now this is a Obi-Wan Kenobi quote, and as you start using these skill sets more, what you start realizing that like a lot of the things we just assume to be given, rules that we said, oh, this is a rule. Like, you have to go through this checklist or you cannot launch. You have to do this, otherwise this won't happen. Now, there's like people behind it. People made those rules and they are meant to be broken. So as you get better at influence, what you think you can do also broadens. I think there's another quote which is, I think Steve Jobs, got to use one Steve Jobs quote during the talk, right? Which is that all the rules were made by people not smart enough. So learn to break. And then, of course, you have to end with a meme, right? Like, sort of going with that, just always think about owning the outcome. So what does that mean? That means that because you have the power to change people using influence, you're not really responsible for being right. You're responsible for making sure the right thing happens. And so if you're accepting things that, this is how these things work here, and I know I'm right, I'm better, well, let's not do that. Let's actually try to bring change. The practical side of this is you cannot change everything at once. So pick your battles. You have the power to change things through influence. Pick the ones that really matter and go for them. Any last questions? Go on.
Slightly off topic, is that okay?
Go for it.
Okay. So how can you get a client to agree to user testing?
How do you get a client to agree to
User testing? So basically, at this point, client that has hired me, had failed miserably and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to launch something. And then they said, wow, this is horrible, and they fired everyone, and they said, great, now you're in charge of this. And because they've now spent all this money, they're like, oh, we can't spend another dollar on this. Like, we're gonna build what's right, because we really had to throw away a lot of code, start all over again. They're spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so we're spending so much money, I can't spend another dollar, I don't have any more budget for user testing. And you try to have the conversation that says, and then when you launch something that people don't like, how much will we spend? And you can't have a rational conversation because they're so upset about how much money, the negative energy that's gone into this project in the past, and how much money they've lost that and they don't want to have to go ask their boss for more money, this is the CMO, he doesn't want to go to the CEO to say, can I have another money for, user testing, you have any, because I don't know how to influence that at all. This is the CMO, he's just said, I've tried to talk to him, I've had other people try and talk to him, people I thought he really liked, and I was like, okay, you talk to him, he'll listen to you. He's just like, I'm not going to spend any money. So at this point, I'm now trying to figure out how to do it at no cost, how we can just, get on phone calls with people and, stuff that doesn't cost any money, that kind of thing, and then maybe show. But then I'm going to have to show him things that he doesn't want to hear, like, I don't think your navigation's right.
Right.
From the UX perspective, but he doesn't want to hear that, so.
Yeah.
Do you have any
could you do one of these sessions without spending any money?
That's how I'm like, I think I'm just gonna, at this point, I'm kind of like, I could just get on Skype, do basically get on the screen share with somebody and kind of show them what we have and just write down whatever I hear, or record something because just on my own, because I know there's some problems and I just don't know how to bring them up because they're so spent energy-wise and money-wise on this project. They're like, I don't want to change the map, we can't change the design, we can't change anything. We have to go with this thing that is horrible, but you rebuilt it, so let's go.
I think if you did one session for free somehow, show the results,
Yes.
it might change.
Yeah.
The person has, you have to create a 2-minute video
Yes, right.
that the CMO will watch.
Yeah.
They're not going to listen to the session.
Always not. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
I have a question about tools, what tools do you use to keep track of things, projects, or things you need to do, how do you organize yourself?
Great question. I love Trello. That's what I follow. I actually have a blog post on exactly what I do, so I'll point you to that later. But it's there's actually 2 tools. One is Trello, and the other is this amazing tool called Spreadsheets, which is tracking everything beyond a certain time horizon. But Trello is my this is what I want to get done today. I have them color coded by different things. I can go in more detail. I'm sure everybody doesn't want to know my color coding.
That's more away from this.
And then I also have personal goals, hey, here's what I want to achieve this quarter, and those try to be on these. I'm not going to get obsessed with that for management, so I will give you a rundown. Any other questions? Yep.
I think in addition to the skill set you mentioned, I think intuition is also important, and I think it's what differentiates you from other PMs. You can learn all of the things you listed, but if you cannot connect the dots, if you cannot foresee what is good for your customers and for the company, then you might fail. Right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that just the concept of that is, I think intuition is something you can build over time.
Mm-hmm.
It's luckily it's not a skill that's specific to a domain. Once you start to build better products, it's all pattern matching, right? You apply this somewhere else, and you apply it in some business B2B sales to B2C, and it all works together. But yeah, like intuition and also trusting your intuition.
Yes.
Sometimes is super important. I think like one more thing to that. The biggest problems I see sometimes with PMs is they're just over-analyzing and they don't come to a decision. And very often it's just like, make a decision, get it wrong, fix it. You would have done it so much faster than just not doing it. And that's because of no trust. Cool. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Really appreciate it.
That was great. So once again, thanks very much for attending tonight, folks. Every week we're having we're having one of these. So next week is the 29th. Intro to Product Management from HubSpot PM. Hope everybody can make it. The following week is how to use A/B testing for metrics. So we had the speaker once beforehand. I think you came with that one. So this is a data instructor that's really fantastic to listen to. So if you guys are interested in that one, feel free to sign up for that as well. And then we actually have one of these PM product management cohorts coming here in Boston. It's actually 3 spots left for October, so you guys are interested in seeing me after. And the last thing I want to talk about is that we are looking for community organizers for these events. So if you're interested to talk about that with me after, right now, go ahead. Thanks very much for coming. I appreciate it, guys.